Our team got back together last night and started preparation for this week's game. I don't think it's a mystery to anybody that football team we're playing is very good, very deserving of their national ranking, and starts with Klein and his unselfish ability to make plays. And they're a very mature team, a lot of seniors, a lot of juniors. Experienced at key positions. They're sound, giving up 17 points a game, and it's the third team in a row that we've played that's averaging giving up 17 points a game. The difference, this team's averaging 44.5. There's a couple areas that are that stand out in my opinion. One, their return yardage. They're averaging 26 yards on a punt return. Their opponents are averaging 3. I think they've got 20 sacks and only given up 6. Turnovers, 18 to 20 to right around 4, I believe. Obviously, time of possession works in their favor with their style of play. So this is a great challenge for our team. We have to have really good practice this week. Going to have a nice day for football, nice evening, I should say. The weather's supposed to be perfect. And there's not much room for error, so we try to do the best we can to prepare and go up there and see if we can hang around long enough to get in it in the fourth quarter and play with great effort and take care of the football.
Mike, one of the things that you've talked about from time to time is team identity. And has this team got one yet?
I think we're starting to develop some chemistry and create an identity, or they are for themselves. Defensively, we're gaining some confidence. We're more sound. We've defended the deep ball better, which will be really big in a game like this. Kansas State is going to run the ball and run it with the quarterback, which gives them the extra player. They're going to try to throw the ball over your head down the field with double post and switch routes. And so defensively, we're gaining some momentum. Offensively, we haven't had enough people in the right spot to really create that chemistry yet. They've done a great job. We've had a number of players in the last 2 weeks that have given us something in a game when they're hurt and injured. And we've shared with them how much we appreciate what the team has given us. We're getting there. We're certainly not to the level that they are, in my opinion, of with the maturity and experience they have on their team in comparison with who we're playing this week.
What's been the difference in the defense between, say, maybe Arizona and Texas in the last 3 weeks?
One, we started to get healthy. I thought that against TCU was the first game that our defense had everybody out there if we wanted them to be. I've mentioned Lindale. I think Broderick Brown's playing better. Shamil's playing better. D-Lo is playing better. We're getting good play inside. And we just have a few other players that need to pick up their game, and we're getting effort. We tackled better. They're starting to get adjusted. I think our coaches are doing a nice job, and this will be a good challenge. We face a team averaging 45 points a game. It'll be a good challenge for them. Kind of find out if we've gotten anywhere near where we need to be.
You mentioned you had some guys who played through some injuries and played through some pain, and you told them you appreciate that. What does that mean for a team when you got guys who just gut it up and go?
Well, you really have two types of players. Some guys can play with pain and some guys can't. And one thing that we clarify, I think it's important that people outside of the program know, because we talk to our players about it, is there's a difference between being injured and playing with pain. And unfortunately for guys that play the game of football, you have to play with pain because chances of finishing your career without going through some type of injury are very slim. And that's really who you are. Some players never get to that point. Some players do it from day one, like JW. But we've had a number of players. Cooper Bassett plays hurt. Isaiah went out there and gave us something. Jeremy Smith. Lindell, Wes. I mean, I could go on and on with guys that are playing and giving us effort and have some pain. Tyler Johnson, he's in pain. So,
Who's Kansas State's second best player?
well, they have, I don't know names, but they got a receiver and a returner that's a good player. Number 4, that linebacker they have. I've never been in the NFL and I don't draft players, but I wouldn't mind picking him early.
Arthur Brown.
Yeah, spending some money on him. Their safeties tackle really well, and their defensive end. It's a young man we looked at junior college. I think he's from Hutch. Is really developing into a good football player. So Klein gets a lot of attention, deservingly so. I don't look at polls or hadn't looked at anything lately. I'm guessing that he's maybe up to the top of the front runner for the Heisman, and I think he deserves that, in my opinion, from just what I see from an outsider looking in. I don't see a lot of guys, but he's not the only guy on their team now. There's other guys that are solid. Then they have guys that are smart and they play their position, and in my opinion, from an outsider looking in, they do what they're asked to do. When you watch him on tape, you see much more than you see on the highlights. I see a lot of highlights because I get to watch TV from 10:30 to midnight on a Saturday night in most cases. And you see him in goal line and short yardage where he makes some runs where he just runs over people. But if you watch the rest of the game, you'll see that he slithers and slides, and he's a lot more deceiving in the open field than what you see on the highlights. Same thing with their team. Their return yardage and punt and kick return, they get big advantages. They don't make many mistakes in those areas. And their defense tackles well and gets people down and hasn't given up that many big plays. And those are the ingredients, in my opinion, to where when we face a team like this, we see why they're at the point they are in the season.
What's Klein better at this year than last year, in your opinion?
Again, in my opinion, I don't want to make an opinion on somebody else, but it looks like to me he's worked really hard in the offseason on his accuracy on his downfield throws. They hard play fake, turn protect, max protection, run double moves, double post, deep post corners. Give him the time, and his accuracy is considerably better, in my opinion, than it would have been over a year ago. Maybe I was off a year ago, but that's where I see where his improvement is just from watching tape.
Is patience important when playing a team like this that doesn't make mistakes?
That and force them to make mistakes. Come up with a way to try to make them uncharacteristically from what they've done to this point make mistakes. Wes Lunt and Daquan Lowe and Quinn and Lane and Isaiah and number 18 and number 5 and 37 and 11, they can only do what they're capable of. And they need to practice well this week. They need to study tape. They need to prepare. And then they have to go play with great effort. And they can't do any more than their ability will allow them to do. 110% doesn't really exist. About 100% is all you can give. So to answer your question, that's part of being patient in a game like this, is to go play, trust the game plan, and play with great effort.
They played you guys really well last year. Looking at the film this year, have you been surprised at just how good Kansas State has been, or does this all make sense to you, their progression?
Nothing surprises me anymore in college football. But in order to have a really good season, there's 3 things that factor in as I see it. 1, if your defense can just shut everybody down, you got a chance. 2, if you have a mature, unselfish quarterback, you have a real chance. Or the last being you're just so much better than everybody it doesn't matter. And they have a very mature, unselfish quarterback that's a great team leader, in my opinion. And that's why that the other players are following behind him and competing at a high level.
Mike, it's always important, I think, that a quarterback has the not just the respect, but that his teammates on the offensive side of the ball like him. You've had 2 quarterbacks kind of split the season so far, and judging from the things that their offensive teammates say about them, they like both these guys. And I mean, not just a little bit. They like them a lot.
It's really important, and I use the word unselfish in talking about a quarterback or a skill player or somebody that gets a lot of notoriety for their individual success on the field. And we've been very fortunate here. Zach Robinson was an unselfish football player. Brandon Whedon was an unselfish football player. And up to this point, Wes and JW have been the same way. They like to play football. They like their teammates like them, and it makes it so much easier. I can't imagine having a quarterback on our team that the players don't like or don't respect because they're selfish. And so we've been very fortunate that the two guys that we have playing this year have done a great job. And Clint, they like Clint. Clint hadn't been on the field, but our team likes him. They enjoy him as a person, and all those are key ingredients to having a successful program in the long run.
In the case of Wes, you talked about him being very quiet. His teammates say, get him away from. He's not quiet. That he has another personality that he shows them.
I've heard the same thing. Obviously, I hadn't been over there hanging out with him and seen that side of him. But I think that's important, and we all have different personalities. I think that those two guys have learned that they have to be themselves, and they can't put on some type of production and promote something that they're not. And the players appreciate that.
Mike, what's been the difference with the third down defense lately, especially the last couple of weeks? You held TCU to 2 for 14. I think it's like 6 for 35 last couple of weeks. Doing anything differently there?
I don't think so. We've gotten more pressure on the quarterback from the edges over the last couple of weeks, and that helps. If you go back and look at our TCU game, some of those forced interceptions and errant throws came on defensive ends who had their hand on the quarterback or were close. I think in the NFL they charted as a hurry. We've had more hurries. And I think that our secondary has increased their ability to play the football when the ball's in the air over the last 2 or 3 weeks. We still have a ways to go. There's times the ball's in the air and we're not reacting fast enough to it and going up and making that play. But we're much better now than we were a month ago.
If you had to make Klein one-dimensional, force him to either run or force him to either pass, instead of having the 50-50 split he has right now, what would you try to do as a team?
I'm not sure. He's been really good at both. I know you guys know this because you watch it, but their alignments don't allow that to happen. It's what they do with their tight end and a fullback or a wing and a fullback is very, very comparable to what we do out of spread. Is that it's almost impossible to stop one or the other. So you just can't, unless you start playing with an extra guy. You can't do either because they're going to give themselves that opportunity. Now, we could put them all up there and say, just throw it if you can, but you're almost just saying that, you're giving up because he's nowhere near being the type of quarterback that you can just put everybody up like you would maybe in the 80s against a wishbone quarterback, guys that just ran it all the time and couldn't throw it very well. You could take that chance, but he throws the ball too well to even take that chance.
Does that mean patience would be the key for the linebackers?
Well, Dave asked that question already. We need to play sound football on defense, and we need to use our technique and read our keys. They're going to make some plays. You don't get to the 8th week of the season. In fact, this is their 9th game, right? They don't get to the 9th game of the season and average 45 points a game without being pretty good. So we need to be sound, be in the right gap. We need to read our keys, and we need to run to the football.
Coach, I asked you last week about Gary Patterson's defense, but it's not just his. You see more and more cover 6, and it's not like it's a new invention, but why do you think so many defensive coordinators have are using cover 6 as a predominant coverage in their defense?
There's a little bit of cheat to it. You can cheat coverage to one side or the other, and you get a little better run support. And offensive and defensive schemes turn cycles. There used to be one years ago that was similar to it. We just didn't call it that. This one will phase out here in a little bit, and they'll come up with something else. But it's just kind of the newest thing, and gives people an opportunity to defend a spread style of offense, in my opinion. Gives you the best chance to slow people down.
Mike, is part of the reason that Kansas State is so hard to play is because they're so different than everybody else, especially offensively, or no?
They just don't make very many mistakes. They don't turn the ball over very much, and they get a lot of turnovers. And they're better in the return and kicking game than people give them credit for. Outsiders looking in don't really notice return yards, and they sneak up on you over a period of time. They end up with 3/4 or the length of a football field in return yards, and you only got 5 or 6 yards. That's 100 yards or 90 yards, whatever it is. And then they don't give you a lot. They don't make a lot of mistakes. And so some teams maybe don't stay as patient like we talked about, and then you can play into their hand.
Last year, they gave up 50 points quite frequently. They gave up 52 to you guys. Obviously, Brandon Wheaton, Blackman held. They gave up 50 to OU. They gave up quite a few points. This year, you don't really see them giving up more than that 20 line. What's been the biggest difference on defense? I mean, everybody looks at Klein, but what's changed from them to basically cut their allowing points in half?
They've got a number of players that are back from last year, and they've got a year of experience in their system, and they've kind of matured and grown, in my opinion, with what they're trying to accomplish. And I think that at times we can't forget what momentum and confidence will do for a team sport. And the start that they had this year compared to last year, players that maybe not as talented as what we think play at a much higher level because of momentum and confidence.
You've talked a lot about Lindell Johnson lately. Do you feel the same way you felt about him before? Has it been since he came back from injury that he's really impressed you?
He's been really good for us. There's been a lot of talk about him in a number of plays. He's long and rangy and can run. And he's an in-between kind of guy, meaning he can play the run and play the pass, play the draw, play the quick out, and he shows up quick. And I think he's got a lot of what Sean Lewis has in him, that he just seems to end up around the ball a lot. And he's going to be close to being healthy this week, in my opinion. And so he brings a lot to us when you play a team that can hand the ball off and run it and also throw it. Now, the team we're playing this week does it differently than what we've seen the last couple weeks, but they still do it, play fake it, and then throw it. Somebody's got to recover and make a play.
He doesn't start. Is he almost like a sixth man in basketball?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great definition for him. And, the sixth man can come in and end up playing the final 30 minutes of a game or 20 minutes of a game, and he gives us a lot in that area. We're starting to bring him into special teams more. But we just didn't want to overload his plate until we felt like that he was 100% healthy.
How do they defend West Virginia so well? And does that change at all how you might approach their defense?
Not really. There's some similarities in what we do in comparison to West Virginia, but there's also quite a bit of difference right now with who they are from what I've seen in who we are with our personnel and in our quarterback and experience. It's just a little bit different. So, we watch it, we look at it, we study it, but we don't really see ourselves with that type of offense and that style of play right now.
Wes's general demeanor a big positive for you going into an atmosphere like he's going to face Saturday night?
Well, he's only been on it once, in Arizona, and he handled himself well. Where Arizona's a good football team, this is obviously the number 2 team in the country. and they'll be fired up and going by 7 o'clock at night. So this will be a good challenge for him. Easier said than done, but ultimately you go on the field and there's 11 guys out there for both teams. We've been fortunate over the last few years that we've communicated and functioned fairly well in a noisy environment, and we would expect for the same in this game.
Mike, talk a little bit about Bill Snyder and just the job he's done, and do you have any, just stories about Bill?
I don't really know him very well. Have a lot of respect for him for a variety of reasons. I'm told that he works a lot and doesn't socialize a lot, and I don't socialize much. So we've always had nice conversations when we were in the same environment. But he's brought a lot to the table, and I think that he's a great example of what strengths and what influence a coach can have on an organization or a team or a school. He did it once, which we would all agree could be arguably maybe the greatest coaching job ever in college football history. Then he left and came back, and he's got him in position again. So at times people can lose sight of how important an attitude, confidence that's instilled in an organization, work habits, and a way of showing success can influence a program. And I think he's a great example of that.